Jessamine County Public Library and the Nature Reliance School present Vital Survival, a 12-part series that will cover the essential knowledge and skills you need to be prepared for disaster and emergency situations. Lesson 8 will cover types of foods you should keep on hand for emergencies and how to prepare them outdoors, plus an introduction to edible weeds that are widely available. If you are interested in exploring this topic further, check out these resources available at JCPL. Stay tuned after the lesson to learn how you can be entered to win one of Craig Caudill's books.
Hey, are you hungry? I'm hungry. So in lesson number 8, what we're going to be doing is taking a look at food. All the different resources that we have that we can purchase and take into a wilderness environment. We can have ready for disaster readiness. And I'm also going to walk you around and show you my 3 most favorite edible wild plants that you can find nearly anywhere and utilize for survival. Hey, so let's talk about a couple of choices that we have that we can buy that is ready for us as it relates to outdoor survival readiness, survival, and stuff of that nature. One is a freeze-dried option. Another is a dehydrated option. I want to talk about both and why, in my opinion, one is better than the other. So, not this particular brand, but this is a good brand. FreezeDried Foods, this is a Mountain House brand in particular. Typically, when food is freeze-dried, it does 2 things. It retains most of the taste and most of the nutrition. Therefore, if you can find freeze-dried food, it's going to be more palatable to you, and the reason we're eating in a survival situation is to gain nutrition and sustenance, not just to be eating for morale, right? But the fact that some of the taste is retained, or most of the taste is retained, is going to be beneficial in a freeze-dried food. Here's the issue. A Mountain House meal like this is more expensive than a similar dehydrated meal. So let's talk about that, because that might be something of concern as well. So this is actually survival food. And again, I'm not saying that you should get this brand. I don't even know if this company is still in existence actually. But the point being is that these are dehydrated meals, and what you can see here in this one bucket, for a family of 4, you have 90 servings. So if every person is getting 1,000 calories, then you've got enough food right here in one bucket for 15 days for a family of 4. That's the thought process. It makes it easier for you to pack. This is something that has a 20-year shelf life. That's 20 years that you can leave it on a shelf. So if you buy it, then you can utilize it within that first 20 years. And quite frankly, most people realize that this stuff lasts longer than that. But to make it as nutritious as possible, then use it within that first 20 years. Now, again, this is the less expensive option. But again, when you eat that one meal for you, you're not going to get as much nutrition as you are in one meal with a freeze-dried option. Now, one of the classics that a lot of people utilize for a survival food is just simple ramen noodles, because this is going to get you the necessary. Flies are bad this time of year, right? It's one of them things you have to deal with when you're in the outdoors. One of the things that people utilize ramen for is a survival or backpacker meal, simply because they're so light. This weighs virtually nothing. It has a considerable amount of calories. This one block has, let me see here, 200 calories. So that's a lot of calories. And all you need for any of these is for water to rehydrate them and utilize them. Here's the thing to keep in mind for survival as it relates to, I've got to have sustenance, I've got to have food that keeps me alive. You do not have to cook these. I can eat these raw. I can eat the stuff that's in this raw. I can eat the Mountain House meal raw. If that's all I need is just to get food in my belly, the problem is that when you put freeze-dried or dehydrated food in your mouth, it's going to start immediately sucking the moisture out of your mouth, and it's going to cause you to force yourself to continue to produce water, which is why we have the water lesson first. It's best if you utilize water in these particular offerings here, so that you have what you need to have both a morale boost, a sustenance boost, and what you need to keep going. Now, what we have here is another fantastic food option. I'm going to talk about the pros and cons of it. What you have here is a meal ready to eat, what's typically referred to as MRE in the military. But they have these available for average ordinary citizens and civilians too. This is one brand that I highly recommend, which is MRE Nation, mrenation.com, I believe. You can check that out. They make disaster readiness food sources just for your average ordinary person like me and you. And so that's what this comes from, and I've utilized these a number of times and they work exceptionally well. Let me just show you some of the things that come in these. So one of the things that comes with this is what they typically refer to as the accessory kit. What this has in it is a spoon, salt and pepper, sugar, some toilet paper, as well as some candy. The candies are really useful. They come with a main meal. In this particular case, we have spicy Southwest chicken. But again, the reason I brought your attention to MRE Nation is because they've got all sorts of different meal plans, and you can find ones that are vegetarian, those that are gluten-free, those that are just, quite frankly, tasty and have a wide range of different options for you. So check them out. But that's what's in this package. What you have is the actual meal inside of here. And inside of here, you will put this inside of a cooker that I'll show you just in a moment. But another thing to keep in mind when you're utilizing something like this is that this is fire starting material right here. So it's not something you just throw away. You can utilize that too. You have a bag, and sometimes they have different drink mixes that you can put water in here and shake it up. Even milkshakes and stuff of that nature, which I'm not a big fan of the milkshakes, but that's what they're for. Dried fruit mix in this particular case, they usually have some sort of what I would typically refer to as a healthy snack, some sort of fruit like this or nuts or something of that nature. And this is what I was talking about earlier. You have a drink mix here. This is going to be a drink mix that has extra electrolytes in it, much like Pedialyte, which we'll get into in a moment too. But that's a real useful tool to have. And then typically you have something like crackers or a bread option. And this particular one, I don't know how I got fortunate enough to get 2 crackers, but I got 2 crackers in there. And on those crackers you can put, in this case, this is cheese spread with bacon. Oftentimes they'll have peanut butter, sometimes jelly. And again, you can customize the ones that you want and get in there. Got an extra something there. Oh yeah, here's the jelly too. So they have strawberry jam in here for you. This will give you a lot of calories to get energy when you need it. And the last thing I want to show you is the heater. And I want to caution you about this heater. Okay, so this heater, what you do is you put water, and it's got very clear directions. Look at these directions right here. This is very important. Fill to between these lines. Okay, if you look at this and go, okay, I need a lot more water, or you don't put enough water, the heater does not work. So the way this works is that you open this up, you put your water in there, and when I say water in there, just to that line, because this right here is the heater. And you put your meal down in there, because that's going to be the actual cooker that's cooking the meal. So you want to make sure that that heater doesn't get bunched up like I just bunched up there. Spread it out on the main meal, because once that gets hot, that gets hot. And what we do, it works really well, fold this back over, stick it back in its original container, because that will retain all the heat. And then prop this up and let it cook. Now the cool thing is that you don't have to have anything that makes heat, like firewood. You don't have to build a fire to cook this. That is going to cook it right there, and you're going to be perfectly set for food. Now, here's the cons. Obviously, that looks like a great meal, doesn't it? Well, it weighs a lot. And so carrying all this is designed for a soldier or a good Marine or something of that nature to carry some on their back. And, you know, no matter what's going on, they're going to ruck it. Or they might have that shipped into them by the people that are responsible for bringing in food. You know, that's how a military works. So for me and you, this is a great source to add a one meal to go in a pack, and you might be out for a couple days and you might get lost or something of that nature. Again, do everything you can not to get lost, but just be aware it's going to be heavy, very heavy compared to your backpacker meals and stuff of that nature. But once you combine the backpacker meal and the stove that we're going to talk about next, and all the pieces and parts that go with it to be able to make a hot meal, this is definitely worth your consideration, because everything's encapsulated right here and you've got everything you need in one package. What we want to look at now are a couple of different options for you as it relates to small stoves that you can utilize in a survival situation, and particularly for use in backcountry setting where you can put something in your pack and carry it. The first one is a Jetboil. It doesn't have to be this brand. There's a couple of different manufacturers. Matter of fact, MSR is another manufacturer that makes stoves like this. But what you utilize is an isobutane canister that you screw on the bottom. Basically what you have right here is a gas eye, and you put your cup on top of this. Now what this is utilized for is to boil water. It's not a real useful apparatus to cook food into. It's basically just to boil water, make some coffee, tea, utilize the boiled water to put in your backpacker meal or something of that nature. And it works exceptionally well. You can go from having a stove in your pack, out, boiled water, put into your meal in less than 5 minutes. It doesn't take very long at all. So if you're looking for expedient use, then I suggest this. Here's the problem with this. Isobutane doesn't work real well in cold weather. And so if you have one of these and you're going to utilize it in cold temperatures below freezing, then what you want to do is, before you use this, put it in your jacket so your body heat will warm it up. Sometimes people put these in their sleeping bags at night and warm them up so they can utilize them in the morning. And that way you actually warm the canister up. It's not dangerous, it's not going to catch fire or anything of that nature. But because the vapor is what catches the flame and ignites and utilizes it in the system, you have to have the vapor in there warmed up. So you can do that with body heat. Now the way these work is they have a valve on the side just like you do a gas stove, and you can hear the gas coming out. And this is an igniter just like a grill. I can tell you from experience that oftentimes those clickers don't work after you use them a lot. So I always make sure that I have a lighter for me if I'm going in the backcountry. So I just used the valve right here to just turn the gas off when I didn't need it anymore. Now the next stove that we have here is quite a bit different. It has a fuel canister bottle here and has a lock on it so that you don't mistakenly let that come off. What you have here is the actual burner, and then right here what you have is the pump. So the first thing you do is you take the pump, you stick it down in the bottle, and you secure it to the bottle. And you want to make sure that's good and not over tight but tight, just hand tight. Next part is you take the burner, and this is the part right here, believe it or not, is where the liquid fuel is going to go in. Put that on there, clip it on right here, and now what you have is a nice setup. And I always like to move it around until I get everything really good and steady. So then when I put a pot on this, it's going to be flat, which is what I have now. So what we do from here is we're going to pump this up, and there's so many different manufacturers of these, you just need to follow their directions. You're going to pump this up to build pressure in the bottle. That's going to push gas down in here, and then you follow a certain set of procedures to get that lit, and then you basically have a gas stove. And in that, you have a fantastic cooking operation. Now, the beautiful part about this apparatus is that it's not susceptible to cold weather. It works really well in cold temperatures. Here's some problems with it though. You've got liquid gas, so you've got to make sure you get that top on there every time, or you'll pour that into your pack or wherever it is, the back of your car or truck or whatever it is, and that's a problem. It has a little bit bigger flame, and it heats up underneath as well. So that's why they have a shield. So you always want to put a shield under this, particularly if you're using it on the forest floor. Clear all the debris away from it so that you don't catch anything on fire. And it also comes with a windshield that keeps wind from going around that I didn't set up for today. But that is a very useful tool. I love using mine. I've utilized this stove right here for almost 30 years and it's fantastic. So keep that in mind and you'll choose the one that's best for you. All right, so let me talk about some of the things that I like to carry with me on the move. First off, Pedialyte. They make another one called Vitalite, but this is the most cost-effective electrolyte additive that I think you can find, and you can find it nearly anywhere. I'm a big fan of carrying powder simply because you don't have to carry around another container that has liquid in it you might lose. So in this particular case, you've got somebody in your crew that's getting dehydrated. lost a lot of nutrition, lost a lot of electrolytes, and needs that mineral, just you need to add that back to them, you can put this in a canteen of water or a bottle of water. They're going to be much better off. Some sort of power bar or protein bar or some variation of it. I'm a big fan of these. I'm not a big fan of those that have chocolate in them because they melt in the summertime, and in the wintertime they get frozen and they're hard to chew. So get something that's going to be a mash of different materials. Cliff bars are really good choices for that. Those RX bars are good, but they also get frozen in cold weather. If that happens, just put that underneath your armpit or put it in one of your pockets so that your body heat will warm it up. And that way you can warm that up and it gets to where it's chewable again. And that way you can get the nutrition. Again, these are things that I carry with me on the move. And I use the other things when I have an opportunity to stop and set up a camp or something of that nature. So I don't want to forego talking about edible plants because they're so valuable, but I do want to caution you that getting into edible and medicinal plants and foraging for food and stuff of that nature requires a considerable amount of study. You can get into our online courses at my website, naturalist.org. We got a foraging for fun class, edible and medicinal trees. That way you can get into an in-depth study of the subject. But I do want to talk about 3 here for you that are widely spread out and are useful in a survival situation. The first is what we have a lot of behind me right here, which is grass. It's not that it's going to be the most palatable thing, but if you get some grass that you know is not toxic, then what you can do is chew it, get the nutrition, the juices, swallow that, and then spit the fibrous material out. Don't actually eat the solid portion. Just spit it out. That'll give you some nutrition to give you some sustenance. It's not a lot, but it's something. Number 2 would be acorns, because they're so widespread in this part of the world on the eastern side of the United States. It's a fantastic resource. Again, it'd probably be best if you take those and boil them, and there's a process for that to get the tannins out. But in a true survival situation where you have nothing else, there's been many people in history that have survived living off of nothing but acorns and not process them at all. Again, it's not very palatable, but it'll keep you alive. And last is cattails. Cattails are an efficient use of food. You can eat the small heads when they're green, not when they're brown obviously, but when they're green you can eat them like corn on the cob. Very young shoots when the leaves are very short and you know that they're cattails growing in the edge of water. You've got to identify them because there are poisonous lookalikes. Make sure that it's cattails. And then you can use the roots as a stock to get some sustenance and some carbs out of the root stock, put that into a juice and then drink that. Those are the top 3 that I can think of that are very widespread. And again, it's worthy of your time to get into some resources. Again, we suggest those resources in our online courses, and that way you can get into some books. There's all kinds of books on that subject matter, but our online classes are fantastic for you. So with that said, this has been a whole lot to do with food. I hope it's been helpful. We've looked at all kinds of things you can pack, things that you can find, things that you can eat on the move, things that when you sit down and you can cook, Come on, join in. Let's learn together.
If you would like to be entered to win one of Craig Caudill's books, email the correct answer to this question to Les Lehman at lehman@jesspублib.org. What are Craig's 3 favorite edible plants? Thanks for watching. Check out the JCPL YouTube channel for more videos in this series.